Okay, well, welcome, Tim Shieff. It's a pleasure to have you. Good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Thank you
Looks
for having me
like you've
back
been
on.
traveling. You've been traveling all over the world, and I want to hear about some of that stuff. So, for those members that aren't familiar with Tim, Tim was a world-class athlete in the parkour, ninja warrior sports. Did that much of that as a vegan athlete. Got great acclaim from the vegan community. Had just a company that was promoting about ethics and was very much I would say it's fair to say you were very much an ethical vegan. You saw some health issues come up and just tried just about everything possible, even things that people thought were crazy, because you really, really, with all your heart, wanted to continue to do that, and eventually
Yeah.
decided that you had to take health in your own hands. So, Tim, let me let you further just introduce yourself for those folks who may not know what's going on. And I'd love to see where you are update a year or
Sure.
so later after you made that decision to leave. So tell folks a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you grew up, your
Sure.
sports history, and a time in veganism, and then the decision to leave and all that stuff, if you don't mind.
Cool. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, thanks for the floor, and hello to everyone that's listening. So I was actually born in Connecticut, but my parents were British, and when I was about 2 or 3 years old, I moved back to England. And so I've got dual citizenship, so I've always traveled around and been fairly kind of open to worldly ways and looked at things like that. Got into breakdancing, free running, won the World Free Running Championships in 2010. Then in 2012, I went vegan for ethical reasons. I saw Gary Yourofsky's speech, the greatest speech you'll ever hear, and just thought, I'm a nice person. Why am I supporting this cruel? I was never raised around farms or with any awareness of how animals were treated. So when I did come to the awareness of it, it came as such a shock to me that it was a very sort of emotional, irrational decision to go completely vegan. Although, it comes from a good place. And so I did that. I felt some benefits in the beginning. I think I didn't completely cut out processed stuff, but you cut out, probably some low quality meats and certain breads and even, dairy to a degree. I don't think that agrees with me. So cutting that out probably was one of the big things that benefited me. I lost some weight. My joints felt a bit better. But I never felt quite ideal with it. So I kept searching. I ended up in the raw vegan movement, which for short periods, you get a lot of clarity in it because it's either calorie restriction or even though I was trying to eat as much calories as I could, or it's some kind of fasting element or something in it that you do feel, in some moments you feel really alive and clear, but then in other moments you have like no energy and you never feel satiated. So it was like, when you're tracking all different health markers, veganism, some things went up, raw vegan, some things went up, some things dropped. And it kind of like, where do you want to lie? But over the span of about 2 or 3 years, I felt better than I had. And then from 3 years onwards, I started to feel progressively worse. But so I only ever tried to promote veganism from kind of a compassionate standpoint, because I always, the science wasn't my science. So I don't want to go regurgitating Dr. Greger. Even if I did believe it, it doesn't feel integral to share something that's kind of, so I always came from a compassionate angle. And that's kind of eventually I tried so many things, like Sean alluded to, urine therapy. I ended up with a 35-day water fast, where I got very slim, lost a lot of weight, thinking that would be the solution to everything. And I'd be able to come back out to the perfect human diet, and all of this, the sort of sins of my past from all the meat and cheese that I ate before was buried deep in my joints. And that when I did the fast, it would help cleanse all of that out. And I came out of the fast back to a pretty much raw vegan diet. And after about 2 weeks, issues flared back up. I had very uncomfortable going to the bathroom and blood down there. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I've just done all this hard work. Like, it's hard to fast. Like, people know that fast is tough work. And in so many ways, emotionally, physically, and everything. And to think that was going to be the answer, that was like the last thing I was led to do in my way. It felt like led by God or whatever, some highest thing, to try this as the final option was just to fast. And inevitably that was the penultimate thing I was going to do, because the ultimate thing would be to try meat again. And that was the very second to last thing. And so when I came back to what I believe truly to be the perfect diet, looking at Arnold Ehret's work, the mucusless diet, Dr. Robert Morse, people like these guys, really believing in what they're saying, but the experience of it myself in going to the depths of it was not the same as what they were saying. And so coming out of it, I realized I'm still suffering. I had a few friends that had been vegan with me that like low-key quietly came out of veganism, and I'd messaged them. Another guy who'd fasted that I'd met for 40 days, and he was raw vegan when I met him, and 6 months later I'd fasted, and I spoke to him, and he was eating butter and eggs and feeling amazing, like raw butter and eggs. Another friend went from vegan to keto diet, and another guy was talking about keto that I was really close with. And so these were 3 different sources from around the kind of, one guy in Canada, one in Thailand, and one in London. At the same time, were coming to me as I was just finally questioning the real limits of the vegan diet. And in that, it just kind of sparked something in my head, and I was looking around, like I live when I live there in Derby in the Midlands in England, and there's so many fields of cows and sheep, and I'm buying all this watermelon for getting shipped from abroad, asking for healing, and ignoring everything that surrounds me in a sense. And so I bought some wild salmon from the supermarket and some eggs from a farm shop down the road, and I just realized there's, you know, animals are dying for my choices anyway. If I'm buying bread that they're in the, you know, production in the grain, I'm sure you guys have all heard it before, when they're cropping the grains and everything. Then there was a story from Paul Check, so people here might know Paul Check, and it really hit home. He said his neighbors owned a papaya farm. Was it papaya? It was some fruit farm next door, and it wasn't papaya, but we'll just go with papaya. It was a nice fruit, and he said one day he heard these gunshots, and he was like, "What's going on?" He went outside and he saw them shooting deer on the neighboring farm, and it's a fruit farm, but they were killing the deer because they were eating all the fruit. And it was like, even if you're raw vegan and you think you're doing the best thing, you don't know what animals have been harmed in that process. And then if it's doing you harm as well, then why not just put yourself back in that cycle and make a choice, accept the animal's death, and within that acceptance of that death, the suffering that went on for the animals, I was able to kind of even embrace my own death in a way. There's some weird psychological stuff goes on when you're vegan that you see in a lot of these vegans, as I know Shawn battles with them as well. There's a psychological place you go to, and when you're depleted in certain nutrients, that you become ravenous in other ways, and just coming out of it, I felt this like depression lifted, because it's such it comes on so slowly. And then it kind of lifted, and I just had these nostalgic feelings of how life used to be. I had energy again. It took a while I felt so fragile. To be a like professional athlete and slowly decline is one of the biggest things for me, was trying to listen to my body to guide me to health again. And that's what I've been able to do. And it's took really hard work, honestly, to come out of 6 years of veganism to literally in the last 2 months, I feel like I've surpassed where I've been in the past, and it's took so much hard work and discipline, and I'd say no regrets, because everything's, you know, for a reason, and I followed that path because it's my journey I had to go on. But I definitely made life harder for myself, and I could have saved myself a lot of time if I was kind of just, you know, we just need to make sure we get it right for the future generations, that we raise them with the knowledge of how animals are treated, why that, you know, with taking them to farms, to slaughterhouses, to see this stuff, and for them to embrace why we need to do this stuff to survive, you know.
Tim, when you left, when you left the sort of the vegan community, it was not well received. I mean, you had a lot of just very much people that, sorry, Tim, I was going to say, when you left the vegan community and announced that you're leaving, it wasn't pretty. I mean, you had a lot of people that sent a lot of hatred your way, and, you know, and basically, you know, we hear you were never vegan anyway, because even though, you know, I have no doubt in your heart, if we assume that veganism is an ethic, which many people say it's not a diet, it's an ethos, you certainly, I would believe, embodied that, embraced that, fully believe that in your heart. And for people to come out and say, well, you know, at some point in your life you make a decision, therefore you never could have been that. It's kind of reminds me of things like Scientology or other sort of religious type of events. But even, let's just say that, you know, you temporarily had to leave veganism and you were able to heal yourself with that sort of response from that community, the hatred, would it engender any desire for you to ever go back to that community just because of the hatred that is directed your way? And maybe that's a lesson that, you know, like I said, some people need to do something to heal themselves, even if it's temporarily. But
Yeah.
like I said, the level of vitriol that was cast your way, I can't imagine you'd want to rejoin that community, even if you could. So I'm just, were you surprised at I saw the same thing happen with John Venus recently, and I've had him on the podcast, same sort of thing, because people tend to, they kind of uphold some athletes like yourself, like, John as a bodybuilder, and there's been, several others out there that have come out and said, look, I just can't do it. This is not working for my health. And then you get all this, I guess whenever you get in the public figure, you kind of have to expect that. I mean, I know as I slowly grow in influence over time, I've had plenty of stuff directed my way that's pretty negative. But what are your thoughts about that response? And if you could give advice for people that were going to consider leaving veganism, or vegans, that how they respond to people that leave, what are your thoughts?
For me, because I could have just gone silently into the night. I mean, it would have come out and there would have been little dribs and drabs, but I came out on national morning television saying veganism is dangerous to your health, because I didn't want other people. It's such a growing movement. It's a train that I helped put in motion that I felt responsible to try and help stop. So I went on national TV to say, like, veganism has damaged my health. I'm scared. There's a lot of other young influential people that are making this choice that I don't want them to go through the damage that I did, for my 20s, to have to undo it themselves. So I went, and they kind of like got mixed reviews, and they kind of just thought, no, the science is there. You just did it wrong. They come with whatever angles. But for those people, it's about integrity. So it's a tough choice to make, because it is very cult like. But when I was in the movement, I met all of these. I met Gregor, Venus, all the top guys. I never met Vegan Games or anything, but most of the people I met face to face and looked them in the eyes, and not many were actually aspirational people to me. Other than Gary's speeches were really powerful, and I found inspiration from that. But beyond that, the health, they're all quite, and I noticed it more and more towards the end, how emotionally unstable a lot of them are, and unbalanced as humans. And I kind of it's such a simple human mechanism for looking at another human. Do you respect them physically, like mentally? Like, when you look at someone, you can use that as a tool to whether you should trust their opinion, not as the only thing you do. But I think we ignore that a lot, because we look at health officials on TV and think that they're delivering some science data for someone else. And it's like, you look at their body and you're like, you're not healthy. How are you this expert on this thing? And we just taught not to kind of use that part of our brain, this simple human mechanism of like looking at the person speaking. But when I do that, and I wasn't inspired by any vegans, and I was looked at as the vegan athlete, I was the go-to vegan representative. And that's fun in the beginning, and they welcome you. But then at the end, when you're on the way out, you're going, hang on a minute, I'm the guy everyone's looking to be the vegan athlete, and I don't feel that good. So who have I got to look to that's actually like, it's really, when you're inside it, it's such a bubble, but on the outside, as you can clearly see, it's so unstable. And that, for me, it's a product of the lifestyle choice. It's not just something they all have in common. It's completely a product of malnutrition in a large way, I think.
Yeah, I think, the point that, you can look at a human being and there is some sort of visceral, obvious, this person is healthy, this person is not. You get that impression. I think more often than not, that impression is right. And you look in animals, if you see an animal that's fur looks, or, mangy, and, the skin is bad, and they just don't have a good pep in their step, and they just look emaciated. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of training to say that animal is sick, versus you see a big, strong animal with, has good muscle mass and is moving well and sprinting. And I mean, this is sometimes as simple as health needs to be for the macro picture. Now, we've gotten so fascinated with dissecting things down to biochemistry, which, quite honestly, I mean, the honest answer is we really don't know. Despite what people think, even hundreds of years of studying this stuff, we are still not sure on what things mean in all contexts. So I think we have to really go back to some of our basic intuitive instincts. So I think that makes sense. Let me ask you, so you make the decision, you say, okay, I'm just going to put my health forward. I would say that healthy people equals healthy planet. And, I think there's a lot of ways, and as you kind of alluded to, yes, there are ways where you could incorporate animals in your diet and still remain as ethical as possible. I mean, the bottom line is no matter what we do as a human being, we are causing death to other creatures, other animals, whether we by our choices of food or clothing or housing or transportation, or the phones we use. Animals are going to die regardless. And so if we say we're going to do the least harm, I continuously made the argument that, you know, if you eat one large, well-raised animal instead of, you know, lots and lots of crop foods, which kill lots and lots of small animals, you arguably are causing less harm. And the counter argument is, well, not everybody does that, but it's your own personal decision. You personally, as an individual, can make that decision. If you have the financial wherewithal to decide what kind of diet you eat, not like most people in the world, like in the developing nations where they eat whatever they can get. You know, 95% of the people that are eating a primarily plant-based diet do so out of desperation, not out of choice. It's just in this sort of Western, very affluent society that we think we can sort of make that choice and use technology and supplemented food-like products to do that. But, you know, if you make those decisions, you know, like I said, if you have the grace and the you know, the luck to be in a situation where you can make the diet, you can certainly support a regeneratively raised animal. I know the arguments that they say there's not enough land, but the problem is those studies are looking at grass finishing, using traditional grass finishing techniques, which is just let the animals roam on the field without any attempt to improve the soil, without any attempt to massively, you know, what's called regenerative style or adaptive multi-product grazing. That data is very different and shows not only is it sustainable, not only do we have enough land, but it actually could increase the yield, you know, particularly in different parts of the world. Let me ask you, so you make the decision to go, you know, add animal products in, and then I know you said, you know, you basically woke up with a wet dream after adding salmon.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so the vegan diet apparently had negative effects on libido and sexual function, those types of things. What other things did you start to notice in the short term as far as benefits going from, you know, this vegan diet? And people would argue, well, you did it the wrong way, but you know, somewhere in that 6 years, you were following Dr. Michael Greger's Daily Dozen, do it the right way, and that failed you, I assume. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was following his to the T, but I tried all of the versions of whole food, plant-based, yeah, and I really believed in it. And then the last few years, I didn't feel so good, so I didn't promote it as much. And then it was weird because I would see, right after I came out, he was a Goji Man. You know, I see hench herbivores getting gut tests with Goji Man, and then 2 days later he's on the BBC promoting veganism, and it was like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't talk about the health of my diet when I didn't feel healthy. Like, there's no integrity in that, but I guess that's kind of a side point. But yeah, as far as I believe, I tried supplements, never felt, the supplement wouldn't have given me a wet dream, that's what I know.
Yeah, and so so like I said, when you switched over,
yeah, things
did you notice any other benefits?
Yeah, so like I said before, the fog of depression lifted. I felt so much over man, it's kind of a beautiful moment, that first month coming out, because you just start to feel connected to humanity again. Like you really come out of a cult. Like it's that moment of like, you feel closer to your family. You can eat like Sunday dinner with your family again. I go to the countryside a lot and go for walks, and I'd always see cows in fields, and I'd feel like a guilt or a sadness for them, which is all, I can recognize it now coming from my own ego and beliefs. But I felt a gratitude for kind of the wildlife after that, for all the cows I'd seen in fields. I just felt grateful for their existence and for what they provide for us, and to farmers. And so, I felt more connected. That was a huge one, to be honest, just feeling connected to humans. But my body, just being able to train again and not feel fragile. I was getting injured doing yoga towards the end. I was, you know, looking at really deeply at biomechanics and blaming it on other things other than like malnutrition and just the lack of nutrients going to my, I don't know how it works exactly, but there's some sort of like, my muscles were becoming just dead inside, and there was I'd get more and more niggles, and they'd be on the fringe of like snapping a lot. And like I said, coming out of from feeling fragile to I started CrossFit and everything. And lately I could give anyone a tip coming out of veganism. I want to share it more publicly. I'm going to go into it, but I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Doug McGuff and his book, Body by Science. I think that method of training is so good for people coming out of veganism back to meat, because it's so gentle and it just encourages all the muscles fibers to like kind of fatigue and then build without any kind of if you're doing fast motions, you're more likely to pull muscles and stuff. So you just get blood flow and growth back in the muscles. And I think he says it, and other doctors have said muscle mass should be another vital sign of humans, and it's a big part of it for feeling vital is having actual muscle that works. So I'd recommend anyone check out Doug McGuff's work from anyone coming out of veganism or wanting to get healthy as a baseline start point for all fitness.
Yeah, and I'm definitely familiar with Doug's work, and you know, I think there is definitely some benefits to that depending upon your goals. You talk about rejoining humanity, so to speak, and I always make the hashtag Team Human, because I do think, you know, a lot of people in the vegan community, they don't like humankind in a lot of ways, and you know, I can understand why. They think we're evil creatures, that all we do is abuse animals, and we disproportionately destroy the earth. And there is certainly some truth to that, but I mean, you still are human, and you can work from within that team to do that. And I don't know what your travel schedule, but I mean, I've seen you out there with, you know, tribes, you know, I assume African tribes from around the world, and you seem like you're connecting with people from around the world. And I think my guess is you're probably seeing how nutrition plays out and how much they value nutrition, in many cases animal nutrition. Can you talk a little bit about your travels and what you've discovered from interacting with all these different cultures throughout the world?
Yeah, so earlier this year, literally in February, just before kind of the lockdown and COVID kicked off, I went to Rwanda and Uganda to visit the gorilla charity out there and to see the work they were doing. And it was a life-changing experience just to see how connected, how hard they all work, from before sunrise to after sunset. Some people are out working the land just in such a simple way, and how much, when we were having meals, how valued the meat would be as a part of the meal as well. To see that, and just to realize how much privilege we have with the setup we have. And honestly, I don't think we know the cost of most of our lifestyles. When you see how hard they work out there and what they have, but everyone was so quick to smile, and there's such a pure, they kind of expect the good in people, rather than when you see strangers in the Western world, you're like, what does this person want from me? You know, there's kind of underlying judgment always like on the edge of coming out there. Their relationship to nature is so just, I can see how important it is for how they treat other humans as well, because they're all kind of in that cycle of life that we're so removed from.
So you are, remind me, it seems like you're about a year out from this now, Tim. Is that about correct? Since you left veganism, how long has it been?
Actually, it's technically October or September this month will be 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yeah.
And so 2 years on, how are things physically? I know, like I said, do you notice a big difference in what your body is capable of, how it heals, what your resilience is like, your strength is like? What are the differences you've noticed?
Yeah. I just feel like I'm finally able to be the man I was meant to be in my 20s, if I'm honest. Like, I don't know how much, I'm just able to train so frequently now. I can have 2 or 3 training sessions a day. I'm running 2 or 3 times a week, 10Ks each time. I'm cycling, rock climbing again. I love that so much. 2 or 3 times a week I'm out either bouldering outdoors or indoors in the gym. I'm going to the indoor gym now, like a fitness gym, 3 or 4 times a week. So I'm doing that as well. And I'll do 2 sessions of the kind of Doug McGuff stuff, just the baseline high intensity training on the machines. And then I'm doing a lot of biomechanical work. I'm playing, I don't know if you know WEC method. I'm doing you might see me with the ropes, swinging the ropes, which is kind of just good rhythmical movement, coordination between your left and right side, non-dominant side training. It's good for your spine. It's helped me with digestion and things like that. That gentle motion of just swinging a light-weighted rope over and over. So I'm doing a lot of that kind of work, and I just get to play. Like, for me, one of the greatest joys of being a human is having a body and being able to interact. I'm going out in hiking in nature, wild camping. I'm planning some like multiple day long walks, like along Britain has some beautiful like paths, ways, national trails. So I just I'm kind of like being a human that just gets to enjoy the earth really, and just to be fit. But it honestly has took so much like research and self-discovery to get back to here again.
Just a couple of questions from our members. Is one, before you went vegan, what was your diet? And then how old are you now, Tim?
Sure. I'm 32 years old, born in '88. And my diet before veganism, I was a professional athlete, but I never had a nutritionist or anything like that. I would eat McDonald's maybe once, maybe twice a week. I would eat packets of crisps every day. I would eat chocolate bars, probably every day, chocolate bar. But I'd eat decent amounts of, I like veg. I was happy eating lots of veg and lots of meat, but probably ate a lot of cheese and dairy as well. But it's amazing what you can get away with. And I know everyone here must have been through it, man. What you can get away with your 20s, or when you see some of these athletes, I see some of these runners, and they can and CrossFit guys, and they eat so much like donuts and stuff. And you know, how I don't know if like the veganism did me damage that I can't do that, but I can't do that stuff now. Like I don't know if I'm just overly sensitive, whether it's from the veganism, whether it's just age, whatever it is. If I eat like, was it androgenated fats or like vegetable fats, like sunflower oil or rapeseed oil, a little bit of that, I'll get inflamed. I really stay away from gluten. I've actually improved to a point now where I can like occasionally go out and enjoy. I had a pizza a few weeks ago, which was sourdough bread. I mean, it made me like, I was farting for like 24 hours. But generally, like I can kind of like occasionally go out and be a civilian and eat normally now without having to watch every little thing that I eat. But I do notice it, the cleaner I eat and the more I'm on top of it and just eat at home where I know every ingredient, the better I am. But it's super simplified now. I don't know if you're going to ask me or if you want me to go into what I'm currently kind of eating or what.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what your current diet has evolved to. So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
To see.
So I've done several stints at Carnivore, which were really like enlightening, and the inflammation completely went down. But I never kind of pushed through that period. I think I did a month like really good at the most. I was getting quite raw at the time as well. Bone broths, raw livers and all sorts, raw ribeyes. I never quite had, the only time I did carnivore and had energy was when I had dairy. But when I had dairy, I would feel more inflamed. So it was kind of like this catch-22 where I ended up, when I did it without the dairy, I'd do like one training session and I would be tired for a week and I just never got the energy back. And so I've kind of found a nice middle ground right now where I'm eating just kind of rice and then fish most days. And then I'll have, buy venison mince. There's a shop that sells venison mince. So I have that kind of one pack of that and it lasts about 1 or 2 or 3 meals around when I do like my biggest weight session. So I have the mince around that. And the rest of the time I'm just eating kind of wild salmon, trout, cod, and rice and literally shrimp, sometimes shrimp. And I literally put peas in the rice, start to cook that. Towards the end, I put the fish in, and then sometimes I'll stir in some eggs, and it's like an eggy rice with the salmon. Cut some avocado on it, and that's it. And then I eat chestnuts now as my dessert, and that's kind of like when my body feels best at that.
Interesting on the chestnuts. I think that's kind of a. Let's see. Yeah, you hear me okay, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say interesting on the chestnuts. I'm, certainly, when we're not used to not having carbs, definitely energy can be an issue for people early on with carnivore. And sometimes it's a matter of just upping the total caloric intake, upping the fats. But regardless, you find out what works for you. What do you do? What is Tim Shieff doing these days? Are you contemplating going back to athletics? How do you pass your days? What is it that you do, and how are people reacting to what you're doing these days? Are you getting people that appreciate you now? Or are you still, I'm sure you're still recognized by some of the vegans, and maybe they kind of look at you in a different way.
I kind of mix between two things right now. I started a rope company. I'm really passionate about the rope, the rope stuff for all human, for children, to help children be more coordinated. Before they get forced into sports, they should work on children should work on coordination. For old people in old people's home, I'm really working with the ropes, man. It's a magical tool for humans. I think we'll see it grow more and more. So I definitely, yeah, I think biomechanics is a really fascinating topic for me. It's understanding how the body functions physically and what's optimum for athletes, and then how to train towards getting that. On the flip side of that, I work with friends around me. We have a podcast ourselves, Rediscover Human, and honestly, we're just kind of so perturbed by the world right now, the whole COVID thing, the massive overreaction that's gone on. When you look at any of the data and the way people are just this civil obedience to an idiocracy, quite frankly, that's coming, and the way we look at sickness as just a piece of bad luck that might happen to you, rather than having a personal responsibility towards health. I mean, it's a mixture of, it makes me sick to my stomach, if I'm honest, the way the whole mask situation, and makes me terribly sad for humanity, how lost we've got and how easy the majority of people are to be controlled by fear, regardless of statistics. When you look at, as many people literally die each year from car crashes, and no one's talking about stopping cars. So many more people die from the flu, and we don't have this overreaction to the flu, which is, death is a part of life, and it's like this constant fear and fight of death. We're just so easy to control. And for me, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but you look at the Epstein, people know about Jeffrey Epstein and his case, and you've got Bill Gates on 26 flights with this guy, Bill Gates on flights with Bill Clinton, Lex Wexner. There's something going on behind the scenes. Like, there's something going on. This is on the surface what we get presented is this COVID thing, and then behind the scenes you've got, these guys in cahoots with each other. And you must have seen some child trafficking statistics come about nowadays, and the Save Our Children movement. I think there's a big distraction. You look at the art of war, and the biggest way to win the war is A, distraction, B, is know your enemy and don't let them know you. Well, we know with all the social media we've got how easily we're understood and how little we know about the people who actually are in charge of us, and how distracted we are. I think BLM, that movement, is a very big distraction from actually the child trafficking that's going on, that's in America, that's right under our noses, that goes on in England, the paedophilia that's ran by people in great places of power. And it just honestly sickens me. And I think the whole COVID thing is a product of these guys trying to turn the temperature up even more and tighten the noose around our neck. And I'm just got a really watchful eye on the whole thing. I don't know how you feel, and if that's a bit too far for you, but that's just my honest opinion.
Well, I mean, certainly none of us would approve of child trafficking and pedophilia. I mean, I think obviously that's abhorrent to pretty much everybody on the planet, except for those that engage in that. I mean, it's obviously a problem, and certainly we shouldn't turn a blind eye to that. And I would agree that our response to, I do like the fact that you point out that it's not just bad luck that you got some illness. I mean, you do have a role in this. I mean, your health, and it really has sort of frustrated me to no end, and many other physicians or people that care about people, that our government, our national bodies, whoever's directing the response to this pandemic, has been so reluctant to really say, look, we need healthier people. I mean, this would have been a perfect opportunity. When they say we're going to flatten the curve, everybody chill out for 2 weeks, that's one thing. This is now, what are we, 7 months in? How many people could have lost 50 pounds in that time? How many people could have improved their blood glucose? I mean, it's the numbers are in the millions, and yet we're still, doing these things that are, kind of window dressing in my view. I mean, and because we don't want to address the underlying issue in society, which would be, just our population health. I mean, you could argue that we're packed in too tight in communities. You've been to parts of the world where people live on top of each other, and the population density. And we look at Asia in particular, where Tokyo has 35 million people in their metropolitan area. Cities in China with 25+ million people. I mean, that alone is going to and then as those countries become sicker and sicker, which is clearly happening, we're seeing that we're exporting our lifestyle disease throughout the world. We're very effective at doing that. I mean, this is just going to get worse. And so if we don't, wake up to that, I mean, are we going to walk around with masks on our face and then eventually respirators and, just totally strip every human aspect out of humans? Are we going to, like I said, are we
Dehumanization.
the transhumanization? Are we all going to get implants put in our head and be plugged into the matrix? And, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you see this slowly, inch by inch, going that way, where people, and some people, and the problem is so many, I've mentioned this before, so many people are so unhappy with their life, whether it be their life situation, or more often it's due to their health, because they're sick, they're tired, they're depressed, maybe they're obese, they're in pain all the time. And it's preferable to them to take a drug, log into Netflix, log into some virtual reality video game, and that's a better life for them. And some of these people welcome that, gosh, download my brain to an app and let that be my existence. And I can be a superhero swinging a +10, lightning bolt, sword or something like that. I mean, it's such a departure from who we are as a species. And I think the diet is definitely a part of that. I know that, and it really it doesn't entertain me. It frustrates me because people don't understand. We see all these fake meats that are coming out, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, and people getting behind that. And then, the people in this community and others are saying, well, why do those silly vegans, they want it to look like meat? Vegans it's not really, that market is not directed to vegans. Most vegans don't want to eat it. A lot of vegans that are health conscious don't eat it because they know it's crap too. But it's marketed at the omnivore, and it is, the message is this: hey, eating our fake meat is good for the planet. You just need to eat it once a week. Just give up your hamburger and eat our fake meat once a week, and they'll help to save the planet. It's a guilt message. It's not really grounded in any real truth when we look at really the production, all that stuff, and what it does to the environment, what it does to the soil, where the inputs come from to make these things. Even the lab grown meat, same thing, and people don't understand that, but people will willingly embrace that stuff because they just hear the marketing. And that's the one thing that I will say with veganism, they've been very good at marketing. And as you know, there's a lot of appeal to emotion. There's a lot of, as you know, guys like Grieger and some of these others are very good at convincing people using whatever science they choose to use and reporting in any fashion that they want to. Obviously, most of it's associational epidemiologic data, and it's very powerful. It's ways I think there's a reason why many people you see in the communities that I'm in that are going on more meat-based diets are older, and many people going into the vegan movement are very young. I mean, do you have a message for the young? Because you see a lot of 12-year-old kids, little 12-year-old girls are like, I want to save the planet, I like the animals, I'm going to go vegan. What is your message for those people that are young? Because this is who we really have to get to.
Yeah. Honestly, it took me a long journey to get there, but supporting your local farm shop, like the farmers, if you just look at how our ancestors got us here, right? Their biggest allies would have been the farmer down the road. And the vegan movement makes enemies of our local farmers while supporting the big commercial supermarkets, buying this packaged plastic and cardboard packaged processed meat with 20 ingredients, which has come from 10 different parts of the world to be made together in one factory and then shipped to you. It's like this. Just trace that back, look at how many ingredients you got on there, and then walk into your farm shop and look how the eggs, they reuse the package. Every time you buy 6 eggs, there's the same box. You can take your box back and get more or whatever. And the butcher's counter, you can wrap it in paper or whatever. And it's just such a different process when you go to your farm shop and just acknowledge that's all that's grown on the land around you, that's supporting the land around you, it's supporting the people around you. And it's going to do so much better for your body to ingest that than anything that can come out the supermarket. When you're supporting supermarkets, and I'm not saying this is someone who's perfect who never goes to them, I still use supermarkets. I try to limit it a lot more. But you're supporting capitalism and you're supporting massive shipping containers charging across the oceans and all sorts of accidents that happen with that, and food that's been grown in countries where the governments America need to wake up to what America actually is, because you know what goes on in South America, the way the government go in and they can choose who they want to get. They help change who they want to put into power in these countries, because they'll do good trade deals with America on, you know, Brazil nuts or whatever they want to get for cheaper. So it's the only way to avoid all of that. You can look into it or you can deny it or whatever, okay, whether it's true or not, regardless. Go and buy your stuff from your farm shop and support your local community, because that's how you will survive and your children will survive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice message. I think that's a very true message. And like I said, I think first thing is get yourself healthy. And then, you know, I think when we want to talk about the environment, I mean, healthy human beings are a very important part of that. And, you know, if we look at, you know, just in the United States, 'cause I know the stats in the United States a lot better, 10% of our greenhouse gases come from the healthcare sector. I mean, that's far more than agriculture. I mean, animal agriculture is only 4%, and cows are 2%. This is EPA data looking at, you know, all greenhouse gas data. But so, I mean, just get yourself healthy and you're going to help the environment. And then, yes, absolutely, if you can support your local ranchers, farmers, if you want to buy meat, produce, whatever, I mean, I don't care. I mean, just that's how you're gonna help the environment more than any impact, whether you decide to be a vegan diet, whether you want to decide to be an animal-based diet, an omnivorous diet. I mean, and I will tell you, you know, having had the privilege to go to a lot of ranches and meet with a lot of ranchers and talk to ranchers, they're great people. I mean, they're people that really care about what they do. They actually care a lot about the animals that they're raising. I mean, it's a mythology to think that these people, particularly cattle ranchers, they're abusing animals. I mean, it's just not the case. I mean, they spend their lives and they dedicate their lives to spending every single day managing these animals. You know, no, yes, it's part of their livelihood, but they truly care about keeping the animals healthy as possible. You know, and again, knowing that they will die at the end of their time, but these people truly, truly care. I just spent this weekend, you know, up at a ranch that's nearby me, and I got to meet the rancher, and I'm just looking forward to trying to use, you know, my platform to help these guys to, you know, make a living, because they're scratching by. I mean, and it really is, you know, the point that you make about the stuff in the supermarket. Well, I don't think it's poison like a lot of people do. I think that stuff is overconflated. But what I will say is that financial model is destroying the local rancher and the farmer, because the local rancher and the farmer, they're getting undercut. They're getting pushed down to the bare minimum that, you know, they have to do. That's why they have to feed into the factory farm system, because it's the only way they can make a living, because of pressures coming from these big companies, these big meat packing companies, you know, who, by the way, are getting into the fake meat industry because they know that's a more profitable way to do it. If they can take some ground up soybeans and sprinkle some flavor on it and convince everybody it's good for you and it's just as good as meat, they're going to do that. And so you see this advertising because it's far more profitable for them, you know. I mean, and that's all they care about. Profit is not the same as human health, and I think we just have to realize that. So yeah, support your local rancher and local farmer. So you're in the UK, right, Tim? Are you pretty much based in the UK? And that's you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, once the COVID stuff, I guess it lives. I don't know. Are we going to be under this stuff for the next 3 years, waiting for a vaccine that may or may not even work? I'm not sure. Really not sure what the thing is as we roll into flu season and some people get sick and all of a sudden we're locked back down again. It's just, anyway, is there speaking engagements for you? Is there travel engagements for you? What does the future look like for you in the near future?
Yeah, I don't know what the whole COVID, like, at what point are we going to just, like, there's still deaths from flu every year. So there's COVID's never going to get to zero for us to get to this point where we go, right, everything's fine. Like, we're just going to have to accept a certain number and get on with life. And the only thing that scares me with it is like they turn the temperature up a lot, turn it down a little bit, and then they turn it up a lot more and then down. And so it's like, at the end of it all, we're going to left with this new normal they're talking about. Oh, that's the problem. If we can go back to how it was before, cool. But I think they're going to try and put things in place because of this ridiculous nonsense and the lack of our ability and our relationship to ourselves and to God with that. For me, I've got workshops coming up in London. I've not been drawn to cities at all. I think the more you kind of grow, there's more toxic you find cities. Not they're fun places to go and hang out, but and to meet, they're little meccas, but to spend a lot of time in there can be quite draining. But I want to get back out to San Diego at some point, because that's where WEC methods, one of the things that I'm really into, that where I learned the rope. So that's on the horizon for me. But other than that, I've got workshops in London, and I want to just kind of, you get into online stuff and you're like, oh, I want to go here and here. And it's like, I just need to help England. I need to help the UK right now. Like, I need to help, this country's lost its relationship to nature. And we've got, for me, it's my favorite island on the world. Like, there's such a beautiful countryside here, as I'm sure you've seen in some images and stuff. And it gets forgotten about and lost. And I just want to help people out here, to be honest, and help them to find health. And honestly, I feel like I've learned so much. I'm almost a health expert myself from this journey.
Yeah, and I will tell you, some people may raise an eyebrow with that statement, but I have to tell you, as a physician, and I would argue that I'm a health expert. I spent 20 years, saving people's lives, operating on people, studied anatomy and physiology and biochemistry, and it's all the disciplines. I've immersed myself for the last decade in nutrition, but I found that people have expertise gained by experience that you should not dismiss out of hand just because they don't have a title behind their name. Now, you may not be an expert in orthopedic surgery or certain things, but you have experience with veganism. You've had experience with a lot of things. You've had experiences with these other things, and those things are valid, and people can learn from that. And that is one thing I'm learning as being part of this community. And by the way, we have a lot of members from the UK in this community, quite back, and several of them right now are in this meeting. I can tell you that.
Some were from Derby, they said. They're from
I think so. Yeah,
yeah.
So from Derby, and what I find is I learn from this community every single day, and I learn from my patients every day when I was practicing as a surgeon. And you learn something from the textbooks, you learn something from your mentors, but if you're not learning from the people you care for and take care of, you're definitely sleeping on the job, in my view. And I think this is a neat thing about what we're seeing now, because people in the vegan community or the carnivore or whatever paleo community, we all see the absolute disaster of chronic disease that's out there. And it's just like the system is just not working. It just isn't. It's broken. The healthcare system is sick. And the fact that we continue to, in the United States, we spend $3.5 trillion with a T on direct healthcare costs. And what do we have to show for it? We have one of the sickest populations on the planet and getting sicker. So we have to change. And like I said, this platform that we've created, MeatRx, which is growing very rapidly, I'm very excited to say that, is one of the things that's going to make a difference. And I appreciate you coming in here and talking, because you contribute to it. And it's like I said, we are, it's like, okay, we've had the pharmaceutical industry's had 50 years to fix it, and they haven't done it. All they do is keep, managing the symptoms, give you another drug, give you another pill. Oh, by the way, they get more and more expensive every year. And, they never stop having side effects, but they got another pill for that side effect. And so it's a change. So I do appreciate the fact that that people are concerned about that enough to try to help other people. So appreciate what you're doing, Tim. And as you know, diet, exercise, lifestyle, sleep, sunlight, all those things, which just are like common sense, what human beings evolved to do type of stuff. And we're being directed further and further into not being human beings. They talk about, cruelty to animals by confining them in pens and keeping them indoors. Look what we do to human beings. Human beings are the same way. We're shoved into subways, we're shoved underground, we're shoved into buildings. We're now told to, wear a mask and hide under our beds. Is that human cruelty too? I don't know.
Yeah, it's for our children.
Yeah, that is a thing that I see too, how quickly the children are willing to adopt to this natural human behavior. And I've got a son who's a 7-year-old. I've got several children, but my youngest is 7, and he's on online school because I'm in the state of California. They won't open the schools back. And so we're paying for a private school education for him, and he's doing it friggin' online. And it's definitely lower quality. In the first few days, they wanted him to wear a mask online.
What?
Well, it was to
What?
condition them. It was to condition them to get used to wearing a mask. And I said, that's stupid. Don't do that. I mean, it's just like you're wearing a mask in your own home. Uh, so
That
you can
is the
practice.
most idiotic thing, brother. That is
Yeah.
insane.
Anyway, yeah, so it is, it is kind of a shame to see this coming. And, I hope more people will, and again, I don't want to get into the mask, no mask debate, but I mean, I think there's certain aspects where we would all agree wearing a mask at home to get to an online class is completely idiotic. I don't care how you want to justify it. So, I mean, but I mean, let's at least agree that people that are sick, obese, metabolically deranged, whatever you want to put, that is a problem, and we need to address that. I mean, I don't think that's controversial, and yet we never provide, we never do anything more than lip service to it. I mean, the whole medical system is just like, here's a 1 or 2 cents about losing weight and exercising, and then the rest of the hour is spent on talking about the latest drugs. I mean, it's just insanity.
Nothing on emotions, which I think you listed a good list of, sunlight and nutrition that are so important. I think emotional release is another really crucial point that I think as children, we all know how to feel our emotions. And at some stage we kind of learn to stop them because we don't want someone to feel upset that we feel angry or whatever. So we bottle that anger. And I think that's a big step that we all need to kind of start to make individually and hopefully together, is to be able to release emotions in the moment rather than to bottle them up, and then to try and own them as well rather than blame other people for our emotions. And I mean, that's a whole chapter for another conversation, but emotional release is a big part of healing as well.
Yeah, and that is an often overlooked thing. We have, and I'll just put a plug in for this. We have a mental health group meetings every day at 11, not every day, Tuesdays today at 11 a.m. Pacific for our members, and they come together and while nutrition certainly plays a huge role in that, there is more beyond that: stress relief, meditation, things you do that you've got to take care of your mental health in one way or the other. And some people it's exercise, some people it's, for me, this is almost therapeutic, talking to other people. I mean, talking to humans is therapeutic, and just being part of something that makes you feel you have import, that you have meaning in life. And a lot of times that requires, some people do it, they can do it themselves. Other people find that they need that human feedback to give themselves meaning. What I'm saying is somebody might be the greatest sculptor in the world, and they just find therapy in making sculptures or art, or going out in nature, or interacting with animals, whereas other people find that just having this human feedback is almost therapeutic. And so there's a lot of ways to do it. So I'm glad you brought that up. I've seen, I think somebody wanted to point out, a picture of you walking around naked in London, maybe, or something like that. Is that,
Yeah.
how did that go? And how do you do that without getting arrested, man?
I don't know if I had a mask over my genitals. It was a statement about the mask. It was the day they made masks mandatory to go into food shops to buy food in the supermarket, and I said, I'm not wearing a mask in the supermarket. It's too sinister what's really going on, so I'm not having it. So I had to let them know I'm watching them back.
Yeah, that reminds me of an old joke. There were three guys skinny dipping in a pond, and a girl came upon them, and two of the guys rapidly grabbed towels and covered their genitals, and one guy covered his face. And they were like, "Why do you do that?" He goes, "Well, in my country, they recognize people by their faces."
As a
So it
good,
was kind of a funny thing. But how did
yeah,
that go over, by the way? Did anybody? I would just wonder what the reaction was in the crowd as you
yeah.
walked around on your nether regions.
Yeah, most people just found it funny because they knew that was like it was in their minds and on that day of like, oh, I've got to walk around with a mask in my pocket ready to put it on, and so it was like, oh, this guy who's kind of walking down the street, and I walked out like Oxford Street is the biggest shopping centre in London basically. And the police came up to me only at one point and said it's not illegal, as long as you stay covered, just checking that you're all right and you're not crazy and you've got some clothes in the bag. And I was like, yeah, I'm all good. And it was just a sort of peaceful protest from me, just to be like, it's going too far now. The lines are being crossed. And then when you tell me that stuff about your son, it's for me, it's a mark of they're trying to make us look like obedient, silent people, and we're dehumanized. It's becoming too far.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, and I don't necessarily want to get too conspiratorial,
I know,
but I do disagree with a lot of our emphasis on things, and whether or not there's some shady people in the background doing all these evil things or not, I can't say for sure. I know the human, condition for a lot of people is one based on greed and that type of stuff, and so I think there's people out there that would definitely put their interests above the interests of humanity, without a doubt, without a second's doubt. So I'm sure that's going on, to the level of it is. I'm sure it's deeper than most people realize and know. But
yeah,
again, you know, I don't want to dilute what I'm doing personally, because I'm already on the fringes of nutrition, and so
I
I get
understand.
enough
I
blowback
understand.
from that. And so the problem is, you don't want to get totally written off, and then they just kind of lump you in as a complete crazy person. But
I know.
but I agree. The interesting thing is, once you kind of step back from, you kind of unplug from the matrix a little bit, you see
Exactly.
that there's a lot of other things that maybe they aren't like they told you are. Once you start realizing, in my view, I'm like, well, nutrition science, much of the medical science is wildly conflicted. The science really isn't that good. What they've told us clearly hasn't worked. Maybe there's another way. And you go down that rabbit hole, and then you're like, well, what else is out there that we just kind of routinely believe? And I think it's healthy to have that. What frustrates me is not who's right or wrong, but the discussion is not even allowed. When you see people
Yeah.
talking about hydroxychloroquine, or, whether mask is good or not, or whether lockdowns are good or not, whether you believe that or not, we shouldn't shut down one side or the other just because they want to speak to me. I think free speech is vital for the human condition. And I think one of the problems we have, and it's one of the reasons I'm thankful that we have this platform, as you may know, the social media, while it's a wonderful tool, and there's a lot of problems with that, but we do see a fair bit of subtle censorship, sometimes overt censorship. We see certain messaging being put out there. We see where we're, where we're going, and the people that aren't willing to think for themselves and question will just kind of just unwillingly it just permeates you. And it's just like by osmosis. The more you're exposed to something, I think the truth is whatever people hear the most, or whoever has the biggest megaphone.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the facts say, what people believe to be the truth is what they've heard more and more and more and more and more over their life. And then we hear these things from childhood, whether it's stereotypes about other people, or, eat a certain way, or believe this, or
Mm.
fear, I'm not afraid of fat like some people are, but there are a lot of things where you just hear them over and over and over from birth, and it becomes ingrained into your psyche. And that's people know that. This is like, you see children's cartoons, the messages they're putting out to the kids. If you ever have the occasion, and most of us don't want to watch kids cartoons, but if you sit there and watch them for a few minutes, sometimes my kid will be watching it, and I'll listen to what they're saying, like, holy cow. That's literally, you know brainwashing in effect.
It's everywhere, man. They're hypnotizing us from all angles, and it's like you said, until you unplug from the matrix, we have this giant case of Stockholm syndrome, I think, and that's what upsets me. And I understand why you're smart enough to see it, because you've dealt with it from the nutritional angle, and then you see it reflected in all avenues, like you said, in TV, in Hollywood, in the music industry. It goes really far in all of science, and we can go really far. But I understand why you don't want to do it. But that's why I'm just that's my role, is just to call it as I see it, and that's what, for me, it has been my role coming out of veganism, and it's my role now with this. So.
Yeah, my goal, is to help fix people with their health. And, we can disagree about the nutritional way to do it, but it does seem to be working for a lot of people. And certainly we can all agree getting rid of the processed pseudo food out there, that, the garbage works regardless if you believe a plant-based diet or a more animal-based diet is a solution. Something's got to be different than what we do. And so that's been the focus. That's my, I guess, life's work, if you put it that way.
Yeah.
And then, like I tell these people, when I get done saving the planet, and I honestly believe that I'm going to be able to do that, whether I'm a megalomaniac or not, and whether it happens, we'll see. But I have to believe in my heart that optimistically I can make a difference, and I work tirelessly every day to do so. And then, maybe I get a ranch and raise cattle and do it regeneratively and, contribute back in that way too. But Tim, I'll tell you what, it's been a good hour. I really appreciate this. You're welcome back anytime. Best of luck to you. If you get down to San Diego, I'm not far. I'm about an hour away. So I'd love to, have a chat with you in live time, maybe a workout or something, something like that. Do some ropes or, something like that. I'd like to try it. But anyway, guys, thank you very much. Don't forget the mental health meeting today at 11 if you want to do that. And thanks for supporting us. Tim, good luck to you and keep in touch. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, if you want to check me out, humantimothy.co.uk. That's it, humantimothy.co.uk. Thank you, Shawn. Appreciate everything you do, man.
Yeah,
meat is a vital nutrient. I just want to say meat is a vital nutrient that you help people become to the awareness of. Yeah.
And your Instagram, you said is Human Timothy, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, go check out Tim. Go follow him and see what he's up to. Good stuff. All right, guys. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.